And we are recording.
Ready.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Fearless Fridays with Maryann. And today's special guest is Deborah Campbell.
Hi.
So basically, we are just going to be jumping right in. And first, we're going to start with Deborah telling you a little bit about who she is and what she is currently doing.
Okay, well, I'm Deborah Campbell. I live in Rochester, New York. I am a director of workforce development at a nonprofit in the city of Rochester. I also do the Memory Lane morning show every Saturday on WDKX 103.9. And you can listen to us on WDKX.com. I just put that in there.
There you go.
And currently, I'm actually on vacation and I've had a project of getting my house together. And, when the pandemic hit, my goal was to get it done by May 31st. The pandemic hit, and I've kind of pushed it and given myself some grace. So my goal now is to get it done by January 31st, 2021. I like dates. Dates keep
Yes,
me grounded. They
yes, they
really do.
do.
Yeah, they do.
Yep, they do. Okay, so when you mentioned, okay, so you mentioned that you are currently doing workforce development,
Yes.
but when I met you several years ago,
Hmm.
that's not the career that you were in. So tell us a little bit about how you landed where you are today.
Well, if I go all the way back, I was a stay at home mom for 14 years and I raised five kids, two stepdaughters, and then two children I had with my ex husband, and then a son I brought into the marriage. So I was that dedicated stay at home mom. I took care of the house, the family, the kids, etc., for everybody.
Mhm.
And when my marriage ended, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I made the decision. I was working at the time. I had decided the kids were in school and I needed to get out and do something. And I was working for another nonprofit in the city and had made my way up to manager. And my boss came to me and she said, this is where you're going to stay unless you make a decision to go back to school. You're
Wow.
good here, but what you're doing now may not transfer to another organization.
Mm.
So with that, um, I got divorced and made a decision that I was going to go back to school and get my bachelor's degree. And let me tell you something. When I tell you that was the scariest thing I had ever decided, because I had gone to college previously in my
Mhm.
20s, teen, and I didn't do well. I wasn't focused.
Mhm.
I didn't know what I wanted. So when I decided to go back, I was scared to death.
Yeah.
But I jumped in with both feet. And from there, I got my bachelor's degree. Maryann and I were classmates. I
Yes.
went on 2 years later and I got my master's degree in strategic
Woo-hoo.
leadership. But in
Awesome.
between that time, I went from one nonprofit. I worked with Maryann at the Open Door Mission.
Mhm.
I went to the U of R Medical Center, and I went to another nonprofit and I saw this job and I decided to apply for it as the director of workforce development. And I applied and I got the job. So I've been there 2.5 years now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was.
That's
It's
amazing.
it's been this 10 year it's been this 10-year journey. So in between that time, let's see, I entered a relationship after my divorce. I ended that relationship. I bought a house. Learned how to do some things for myself. Learned how to think for myself, and really just made the decision that it was time for me to take care of me and do what was best for me. Period.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you definitely fit the mold of what I'm talking about in regards to transformative freedom. So when you hear the words transformative freedom, what does that mean to you?
You know what? When the first time I heard that, I thought, transformative freedom, I'm like, what does that really mean? But when I think about it, it's when you decide to make a decision that you're going to make a change. And a lot of times we think the change has to be a complete 180-degree turn, that you're automatically somebody different, or you're doing something different, or your behavior is different. But for me, transformative freedom was making the changes in degrees, small changes at a time, so that not only did I become comfortable with the changes, but what it did is it gave me the opportunity to respect the process that I was going through.
Yeah, that's really good. And in the process, did you have any like rewards for yourself as you accomplished small steps?
I did. I used to do this thing called Me Mondays.
Mm,
So every Monday, I would do something for myself. So whether it was, buying a certain food that I liked, or, going to happy hour after work, or to a movie, to dinner, and all of these things I did by myself,
mm,
because I did not want to. And this may sound really selfish, but I really didn't want to deal with other people's things while I was rewarding myself
right.
for my
Hmm.
hard work. So it might have been getting a manicure, a pedicure. It may have been going to try on wigs. It may have been going
Yeah.
to the fabric store. It may have been going to Home Depot. It was anything that I wanted to do that I could do by myself. And a lot of times it didn't cost me a lot of money. So
Hmm.
that's how I rewarded myself.
Yeah, and that's really important because sometimes we set these goals and we always see as the final goal. And
Right.
we get disillusioned, we get stuck, we get frustrated because we don't really see the growth or the process. So it's really important that as you're, accomplishing small steps, first that you take the big goal and then you break it into small bite-sized pieces.
That's
That's how you eat an elephant.
You know what? You are so right. But you know what? But you know what though? That came back to me. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at
Hmm. Can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there you go. I can hear you
Okay.
now.
So instead of me doing these making these big lofty goals and then thinking that I was going to accomplish them immediately, I had to learn how to break the goal down.
Yeah.
Then I had to not be afraid to make a mistake, because I stumbled a few times.
Right.
And
Hmm.
there would be times when I would come home, and, at that time, my daughters were still living with me, and you can't have a breakdown in front of your daughters. You
Yeah.
can't. So, it was usually in the shower, or I would go for a walk, or
Hmm.
I would sit in the parking lot and cry for a while, just trying to figure out, how am I going to get past this? And for me, that was like a release. And
Hmm.
then once I did that, I would look at the situation and I would just start over. I think if you're talking about transformative freedom, you cannot be afraid of the word change,
Hmm.
starting over, and making mistakes.
Yes.
You can't,
Yes.
because then if
Hmm.
you do that, you end up being stuck in the same place.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So one of the things so let me go back a little bit. One of the things that you also mentioned in there is that you have a radio show. How did you get into that?
Listen, I'm gonna tell you something. Some things happen by the grace.
Hmm.
Really. I had actually gone to WDKX to talk about our youth build program that we have.
Okay.
And we weren't supposed to get there until 9 o'clock, but I'm a little OCD with time. I hate to be late for meetings. So I actually showed up at 8:30. So when I got to the station owner, Andre Marcel, let me in, and we're sitting in the studio, and he's looking at me. He's like, "The interview is not until 9 o'clock." I said, "I know, I can't help it." So then he said, "No," he said, "the interview doesn't start until 9." He said, "You must be the boss." And I said, "I
Hmm.
am." I said, "I can't help it. I hate to be late for work, for a meeting or for anything."
Right.
But I'm going to tell you something. I never thought about being on radio. I had never been inside a radio station, and I really had no idea what it encompassed. But I sat in the studio and it was like a whole new world opened up for me. It literally changed me.
Yeah.
And, it was like Andre and we have this real good synergy with each other. I respect him, he respects me. And also, I get to go there and be an absolute crazy person. I get to laugh and talk and play music and talk to people that call into the station and they want to talk to Cookie, and I just get to do all of that, and I absolutely love every single minute of it. That's my happy place. That's the place where I go to get rejuvenated outside of my own spiritual, journey that I'm on. But that's a place where I really get to be 100% myself.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So can you tell us what has been one of your biggest struggle that you've overcome, and what did that process look like?
Oh my gosh. I think the biggest struggle I'm overcoming, because it's still a struggle, is this idea of being alone. Like, I live alone. I do things alone. And, I grew up in a time where the goal was for every woman to have a man and her family. Right. And, once I got divorced, you lose that family attachment, from your husband's side. So I think it was a big adjustment getting used to that, getting used to depending on myself, being there, accepting the place that I'm in now. And that is daily. So I do it I write affirmations to myself. I play music. I dance. I talk to myself. I have these conversations with myself. I talk to other people. But I think what's really happening is that I'm really starting to make peace with myself, with who I am. So I don't need to have somebody around that can't give me 100%. Because when I'm in a relationship, whether it's a friendship or an intimate relationship with someone, I give 100%. And I think that other person needs to give me 100%. Right. And if I can't get the 100%, then I don't have those relationships.
Yeah, it's definitely good. Yes, it's definitely good. And it sounds like you have a clear view of what your boundaries are, and you're not willing to negotiate, which is good because you're protecting yourself. And it's important that we respect ourselves and that we set those boundaries.
Exactly. And let me tell you something, setting boundaries is hard, because not only do you have to set boundaries with people that are outside of your world, but you have to set boundaries with the people in your world, with your children, with someone you may be dating, with coworkers, with your girlfriends. You have to set those boundaries. And it's a little bit scary because you think, oh, that person may not like me if I do that, or they're going to think I'm stuck up. And, just all of these thoughts we put in our heads. So for me, it was getting comfortable with that, just setting boundaries, being with myself, and being okay with it. And knowing that it's a continuous process.
That's good. So what would you say, as it relates to women, what are your thoughts on why we become stuck and sometimes experience fulfillment in our lives?
Oh my gosh. I think for a lot of women, it's fear of this. I'm not gonna be what people think I should be. It's stepping out of this generational mode we've had as we try to please our parents, our children, our spouses, our friends. I think I think it's just the uncomfortability of change. Change is the scariest thing that you can do.
Yes,
because
it is.
What happens is the change makes you think. It makes you question. Who's in your life? Why is this person in your life? Why do I live here? Why am I doing this? And you have to be ready to accept the answers, make the discoveries, and then walk in it.
Mm.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's been, oh my gosh, I think it's been like over a 10-year journey for me. And I'm finally at a place where I'm happy with who I am, where I am. My motto is happiness is intentional. You have to work at it every single day. Nobody gives it to you. You don't get it from your house, your husband, your car, your kids, your job. Those
Right.
are all aspects that add to it. But the happiness part has to come from here and
Right.
here. And without that, everything else, it's really just an act. You're really
Mhm.
just doing it to please other people.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too sometimes has to do with our our negative thought patterns.
Oh,
People have instilled things in us over time, for so
yeah.
long that we begin to believe those lies, and we attach an identity to those lies. So reprogramming our thought patterns is often a journey.
Listen, Maryann, that is so true. I remember once my ex-husband told, and when I say this, I can say it with pride now because this was one of the things that helped me overcome. My ex-husband one time told me that I looked like Zora from the Planet of the Apes.
Wow.
Wow, right. But it was that need to like beat me down
Mm.
to, and he said it was a joke, but we can't internalize, we
Right.
internalize that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it took me a long time to like, I laughed when he said it, but it took
Right.
me a long time to overcome that
Mm-hmm.
perception because that was such a cruel thing to say, but people say those things to you
Right.
because when they see you starting to expand and express and grow, and they're not ready for you to do that, or they're afraid of where you're going to go and become, they do that to you because it stops you dead in your tracks.
Right.
And a lot of times we retreat from that. So
Yeah.
like I said, this has been over 10-year journey for me to even be able to say that
Mm.
to someone without crying or without getting sad. Or I was like, no, that's you. That's not
Yeah.
me. And
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely
that's why
growth.
we're not married. One of the reasons.
Yeah, it's definitely growth. And I think it's so powerful. One of the things that you mentioned a little while ago is that you say affirmations to yourself. Because definitely affirmations is one of the ways that we start to reprogram our old thought patterns and start to create a positive mindset.
Exactly. So one of the things I did when I was working on my master's, we go through this whole process of organizations and how they're made. And every organization has a mission and a vision statement.
Yes.
And one of the things I did, I was really struggling. I had just ended a relationship with the gentleman, and I was really struggling because I'm like, well,
Hmm.
why did you do it? Like
Yeah.
what was wrong? And
Hmm.
I wrote a mission statement for myself, and it says that God is the unlimited and fulfilling source in my life.
Yes, that's
And I
good.
put God at
Mhm.
the top. And then I started writing these affirmations, and I got those big post-it.
Yeah, the big
I took
ones.
a I took a black Sharpie. I hung it up in my kitchen on the wall, and I wrote 104 affirmations.
Wow.
And when I wrote them, I was snotting and slobbing and crying. But I wrote things that I needed to hear for myself that a lot of times other people won't say it to
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
wrote affirmations of where I wanted to be. And I actually still have them. And
Oh,
every
that's
once in
good.
a while, I hang them up. And then the other thing I did was I recorded myself reading those affirmations to myself.
Mhm.
And for a long time, I would listen to those affirmations and I would bawl my eyes out.
That's
And
definitely some healing.
that was the healing part
Yeah.
of it. And, but it was one of the best things I could have ever done. And I think that we can't be afraid to do the work.
Can hear you.
We can't be afraid to do the work for ourselves. A lot of
Yeah.
times we have to take charge of our own lives. And you can't worry about the life of your kids and your husband. And when I say that, I mean that you can't live for them and then think that's going to be quality in your life.
Correct.
You have to do things that you can bring. The better you are, the more healed you are, the better quality of life you have. And that's what you give to other people. And they get to see the real you. Because as long as you are in denial about things or you're dealing with unhealed trauma, you're really not yourself.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's the word.
So what one piece of advice would you give to our listeners in realizing and stepping into her own truth?
Don't be afraid to do it. Get ready.
Yeah.
Get ready. Because you're going to lose some friends. I lost some friends. You may lose a relationship.
Yeah.
You're going to have to tell yourself the truth. Yeah. And when you have to tell yourself the truth, and when you have to be honest with yourself, it's way harder than being honest with anybody else.
Right. Yes, it is.
That's probably the hardest thing you have to do. So get ready for the journey. It is worth it if you put the time and effort, if you do the reflection, if you do reading, writing, if you are willing to spend time with yourself, if you are willing to hear what people have to say about you and not argue it. But that doesn't mean you have to accept it either. And you can't be afraid of being you. The one thing I know about myself, I am 100% comfortable being me. And you've known me for a long time, Maryann. You know I am. You know I am.
Yes, you definitely, yes, you are. Yeah. And I think it's important too that once we make that decision that we're ready for whatever the next step is, that we have to stay focused and we have to let go of the fear and we just have to just stay connected and just go on forward.
Exactly. Yeah. It really, it really is that fearless living because just because you're changing and you're moving, all of it isn't bad.
Right.
One of the things I found out about myself is that I'm smart.
Very, yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I realized I'm smart. I found out I'm a good writer. I found out I'm a good listener, that I'm empathetic, that I'm caring, and that I'm loyal to people. You know what I mean? So I found out, and I'm all of that unapologetically. And we say that a lot, but you really have to walk in it. And
yes, you do.
That's what I do. So whether I'm at work and I'm dealing with my boss, or I'm dealing with one of my peers, or a staff member, or if I'm on the air, that is me. It really doesn't change regularly, unless I decide, to change my hair, change up the look.
So 2021 is upon us. What are you most excited about?
You know what? For 2021, I honestly think, no. I know I'm excited for this next chapter of my life. I feel like good things are going to happen. I'm working on my own podcast called Open Book Conversations. I am learning how to do new things. I'm going to learn how to do some gardening this year. I'm going to travel more. And the one thing I've always been afraid of is to travel alone. Now, that I can say is a fear. And I'm going to work on that this year. As soon as this pandemic thing calms down, I've always wanted to go to Miami.
Oh, nice.
And just lay on the beach and get a hotel that's right off the beach and just hang out on the beach and just do that.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And you're going to be staying in the States, so you'll be safe.
Yeah. So that. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think out of all the things, I think traveling alone probably is the next challenge for me. So
I'm going to hold you accountable.
I know you do it.
I'm going to hold you accountable.
Trust me, I know. But you travel alone, don't you? You've traveled alone.
No, I haven't traveled alone. I've always gone with either friends or with James, but never alone. But that's on my to-do list too.
Okay. Yeah. So that's my goal. And I think the other thing is that, you know what? And I'm going to put it out there. I am open to finding that person, you know, that companion, that partner that I can spend time with. And not out of need, but out of a want, you know, out of a desire for companionship and an opportunity to learn and grow with someone else. And if they're willing to,
2021.
Yes. So if they're willing to give 100%, I'm giving 100%.
That's right. So as we get ready to close out, one of the questions that I always like to ask all of my guests is, when you hear fearless living, what does fearless living mean to you?
Fearless living means to me is that you are living in your own truth, that you walk it, you talk it, and it emulates from you, that what you do over in that side of the room is the same thing you're going to do on that side of the room.
Yes.
And that there's no confusion about who you are.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love him. So I can't believe I always say this at the end of every podcast. Time flies when I'm recording these. Like 30 minutes have already gone past by.
Has it really?
Yeah, well, 27 minutes, almost 28. Yes.
Wow. Well, this has been fantastic. I'm gonna just say this. I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
You've talked about doing this for a few years now, and to see you actually living and walking in your dream and your truth and who you were meant to be, this is fantastic. It really is. I am so proud of you, and I'm honored to be a part of this podcast.
Thank you. All right, guys. So thank you for joining us for another episode of Fearless Fridays with Maryann. And today's guest was Deborah Campbell. I look forward to speaking to you on our next episode.